Morning, folks. Well, it's morning here for me, 5 in the morning. I'm not sure what part of the world you're in. So here we are again, man. You're probably getting tired of seeing my face. The great Robbie Robertson passed away, and at the age of 80, my understanding it was due to prostate cancer. Man, what a way to go for a man. So sorry to hear that. Thankfully, he lived to a nice, decent age, and prayerfully, hopefully, he didn't suffer for too long. You know, if I'm diagnosed with that, I pray that I go quickly without too much pain and suffering. So, in celebration of Robbie's life, what I'm going to do here is a whole torrent of things, a whole string of things. First off, I want to give a shout out and thanks very much to Fiona Walker. Fiona, thank you very much. Fiona let me know of Robbie's passing, and she sent me a couple of things. One is the news report of his passing and a slight interview there with a Canadian journalist who knew him. Then there is going to be a couple of minutes of Robbie explaining the meaning the meaning for the night they drove Old Dixie down. I've always liked that song. And then a video somewhere down the crazy river. I've never seen the video. I know the song. And then following that is an excerpt, 5 minutes from the big interview. And it's really interesting. This really piqued my interest. He is speaking about his feud with Levon Helm. I never knew they had a feud. Well, you know, in a band and whatnot, I imagine there's disagreements and whatnot. But I want to look into that a little bit. And then finally, his last performance, his last live performance with a panel of very talented and famous musicians. So after that, I'll kind of read off how many people are on stage. I guess there's quite a few people here. So let's do this. A tribute to the great Robbie Robertson of the band The Last Waltz. Oh my goodness, man. Did I ever like that concert? I watched it 3 times. So, Robbie Robertson, a celebration of his life and a tribute to a wonderful singer, songwriter, musician, and I believe that he was also involved in movie scores. So he's done quite a lot in his life. Robbie Robertson. Let's get it.
We have breaking news. There are multiple reports that Canadian singer-songwriter Robbie Robertson has died at the age of 80. He led the Canadian-American rock group The Band in the 70s. Robertson was instrumental in creating the Americana music genre. Robertson also pursued a career as a solo artist. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Robertson is also ranked 59th in Rolling Stone magazine's list of 100 greatest guitarists. Eric Alper, music commentator, is joining us now for more on this. Let's talk, Eric, first of all, about your reaction to this news. He was such a figure in the music scene.
Yeah, saddened, shocked. Like many of my colleagues that I've talked to in the last 10 or 15 minutes, nobody was even aware that he was ill. But this certainly comes at a blow, not only to music fans around the world, but also particularly here at home because of the huge and significant influence that Robbie has had on the music industry and his contributions to music as a musician, as a songwriter, as a storyteller, as a collaborator for films. You know, there might not be anybody else that was cooler, that was hipper, that lasted so long in the industry, drawing inspiration from American history and folklore and his own experiences to create something literally from nothing and helped create the alt country and folk roots genres in the process of it. This is a huge loss to the music industry and music bands around the world.
Storytellers.
Eric, you were mentioning some of his collaborations. He worked with Bob Dylan, he worked with Martin Scorsese, and he just completed his 14th project with Martin Scorsese. Talk to us a little bit more about that side of him and how he was able to transition from being a guitarist and a songwriter to someone who was working in film.
Great movie.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it sounds like it's a wide berth on paper, but when you go through the bands and Robbie Robertson's solo work with such strong lyrics, his own ability to stir up emotions in his songs, to kind of weave these vivid narratives throughout the process of a 3.5 minute song. It's really no surprise that he ended up working with somebody like Martin Scorsese or other directors on soundtracks, because he had the ability to blend so many musical styles and genres together, and kind of building the artistic mediums, whether it was, in that clip before of the band playing at the last Waltz for their last concert, to working with Martin on fictional tales. It's not that big of a stretch to say that his experiences and his storytelling in songs was easily lent to somebody else doing it just behind the camera.
Talk to us a little bit more about his influence as an artist. I mean, somebody who has had his career must have had an impact on a lot of musicians, not just in Canada, but elsewhere too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he just influenced everybody. It's no stretch to say that. I think anybody that worked in the country music world and the folk world after any time from like 1968 onwards, he influenced the Beatles, and particularly George Harrison. On their last photo session, the Beatles looked like they were members of the band. They were wearing, brown suits, just like the band did. They grew their hair long and beards, just like the band did. And in fact, it stretches all the way from the Beatles to Taylor Swift. In fact, her last couple of albums, including Folklore, were based in the folk roots movement that the band helped create. So not only do you have those two giants on either side of one another with the Beatles and Taylor Swift, but somewhere in the middle, there's probably a million bands that have been influenced by the band's sound.
Eric Alper, music commentator, joining us on this today. Thank you so much, Eric, for helping us to remember Robbie Robertson.
About art and other symbols that tend to glorify the Confederacy. And when I hear the night they drove Old Dixie down now, I find myself asking myself where that fits into that discussion, a song I happen to love.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, interesting question. Back to this thing, when I went from Canada down to the Mississippi Delta, it was bam. I didn't understand the depth of this. I didn't understand that you would go to the restroom and one said colored and one said white. I thought, I kind of heard about that. Drinking fountains. What? It was crazy. But for me, a lot of the people playing my favorite music, were African Americans, and I just adored what they could do, and I adored them. And whenever I had the opportunity to meet Bo Diddley, he was fantastic guy, and so cool that I just embraced all this. Now, while I was there, one day, Levon took me over to meet his parents in this house that they lived in that was like, wow. It was on stilts because in this area, it can rain a lot, and you have to get around by boat from your house, and that can happen. So anyway, but one day I was there, and his father, who was an incredible character, Jasper Diamond was his name, and we were talking about stuff, and he was talking about his growing up and being a cotton farmer and all of this thing, and telling me about this, and And then it came up, that after the Civil War and everything, they had to, change, and they had to accommodate these kind of things. And he said to me, but he called me Robin. He said, but Robin, I'll tell you right now, the South is going to rise again. And I got chills through me.
I got those relatives too. Yeah.
And so years later, I'm sitting down at the piano writing a song, and something creeped out of me, and it was a story. And I was writing a movie again,
Yes.
right? And I was writing a movie about a Southern family that lost in the war, in the Civil War, and from their side, but the story of that family. And I don't know, I was trying to write a song that I thought Levon could sing better than anybody in the world. And that's all it was. That's what it meant to me. This little movie, a perfect thing for him. And I knew that this group, I knew their instruments,
So he
their
was doing
voices
scripts for
better than
decades.
anyone. And I thought, we can make, nobody's doing this.
Scripts or
Nobody's entering this area of music. And I wasn't thinking about it just to be different. I was just thinking about our own thing. We just do our own thing.
Damn. I did not know that. He's been writing scripts and scores for movies for decades. Somewhere down the crazy river, the video. I hope this makes it up. Otherwise, you're going to be seeing a lot of things being chopped up in the video. This was back in the late 80s, I believe.
Yeah, I can see it now. The distant red neon shivered in the heat. I was feeling like a stranger in a strange land. You know, where people play games with the night.
When I first heard this tune,
It was too hot to sleep.
I thought it was a certain black
I
man.
followed the
Sorry,
sound of
Robbie.
a jukebox coming from up the levee. All of a sudden, I could hear somebody whistling from right behind me. I turned around and she said, "Why do you always end up down at Nick's Cafe?" I said, I don't know. The
Just pulled me
wind
there.
just kind of pushed me this way.
Push me this way.
She said, "Hang the rich."
Catch the blue train, places never been before. Look for me somewhere down the crazy river. Somewhere down the crazy river. Ooh, catch the blue train, all the way to Kokomo. You can find me somewhere down the crazy river. Somewhere down the crazy river.
Take a picture of this.
That kid looks like an actor.
The fields are empty.
Can't think of who.
Abandoned 59 Chevy. Laying in the back seat listening to Little Willie John. Yeah, it's when time stood still.
Little Willie John.
You know, I think I'm gonna go down to Madam X and let her read my mind. She said that voodoo stuff don't do nothing for me.
I'm a man with clear destination. I'm a man with a broad imagination. You fog the mind, you stir the soul. I can't
Excellent.
find
Get to see the band.
no control.
I love the lighting in this video, especially the red background.
Catch the blue train.
Silhouettes.
Places never been before. Look for me somewhere down the crazy river. Somewhere down the
a unique voice he's got.
Wait, did you hear that? Oh, this is sure stirring up some ghosts for me. She said there's one thing you gotta learn, is not to be afraid of it. I said, no, I like it. I like it, it's good. She said, you like it now, but you'll learn to love it later.
Robbie's going off. Yeah, this is definitely around late 80s when there was a lot of sexual expression in video. I'm thinking of Duran
After
Duran
the last
and,
waltz, Robbie Robertson and
George
Levon
Michael.
Helm had a falling out that has been described as one of music's longest-running feuds.
There we go.
Levon Helm passed away from cancer in 2012.
Rest in peace, Levon.
Well, I want to talk about your relationship with Levon Helm. You've mentioned him any number of times. You're an only child. The relationship obviously was close. Is it too close to describe it as he became a brother to you?
No, he was the closest thing in my life I've ever had to a brother. And in this documentary, Once We're Brothers, it ends up focusing on the brotherhood of the band. And it was such an extraordinary relationship. The personal part of it equaled the music, and the music equaled this relationship and brotherhood. And because everything was that close, we were able to do something unlike anybody else. And I hold it precious.
Now, eventually, you and Levon, you said you were very close, but that went bad.
Well, it didn't go bad for me. But years after the band, 10 years or more after this, Levon hit some hard times. He was having some tough times with health and financial situations, and I've been told too, some mental health issues, and he became angry. And he turned his anger towards me at this stage, which I was surprised. For all the years we were together, we never had a crossword, ever,
Do you
about
call
anything.
that the sour
And,
grapes effect?
and now,
Is that what it's
years
called?
later, it's over a decade that we haven't been together. He says, I didn't treat him right, or I didn't do this. And I understood. I knew him. And this was part of his nature,
How he
that
expresses
he
grief.
wasn't great at accepting certain responsibilities on himself. It was always somebody else's doing. So anyway, when he came out and he said some things, that I caused these problems for him.
Yeah, in his book, his own book, he was tough on you.
He was tough on me, but I talked to him on the phone one time, and he said, that book was bullshit. He said, I didn't write that book. This guy wrote it. And he said, he put a bunch of stuff in there. I said, I know, but you said some things about me in there. He said, I know, but some of them I felt at the time, and, some of them I didn't, and blah, blah. And it was just kind of a vagueness. I didn't even respond to it because I knew him. There was no, people say, well, what about the feud? There was no feud. There was no fight. It takes two people to be in a fight.
Right.
And I ended up, when I heard he was dying, I dropped everything and I went to the hospital, and I spent time with him before he was gone. And
Gracious to the
I
end.
sat there and I thought about all the
good friend.
amazing and beautiful things that we had done together. And that was it. That was my connection to him.
But when a friendship like that, a relationship like that goes bad, it generally leaves deep scars. Is that still the case with you when you think about Levon?
Well, Dan is
I'm
digging
really
in.
caught up in the magnificence of the journey that we were on together and the unimaginable circumstances that we happened to be at that place at that time, and the musicality that we invented together, the experiences that money can't buy, that you couldn't write these things, all of that. That's what it means to me. In life, I don't have time for, any bitterness or any that stuff. I was sad for Levon that he had to go there, and I was on a mission of following my path and growing and wonderful things happening, and I felt terrible for him, but I couldn't fix it. He knew that I wasn't angry, and so I just let it go.
And you were and are at peace with it.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Nothing is going to steal his joy. He's following his bliss and he's staying on that path. It's one of the things I really like about Robbie Robertson. I'll talk about that later. This is his final performance with a panel of musicians. Is that Warren Haynes? That's Warren Haynes.
I pulled into Nazareth. I was feeling about half past dead. I just need to find a place where I can lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? He just grinned, shook my hand, no was all he said. Take a load off Annie, take a load for free. Take a load off Annie, and you put the load right on me. Took my bag, went looking for a place to hide. And I saw Carmen and the devil walking side by side. Oh, I said, hey, Carmen, come on, let's go downtown. She said, I got to go, but my friend, you can stick around. Take a load off Annie, take a load for free. Take a load off Annie, and you put the load right on me.
It's like 14, 15 people on that stage.
Go down this road, yeah, ain't nothing you can say. Just go through and just wait on Judgment Day. When I took my breath, what about the young man as it is? You'll be the baby, son, won't you stay and leave me?
visit all of these fantastic people singing your song.
It's a cannonball that'll take me on down the line. My bag is singing low, and I do believe it's time to get back to this lady. You know she's the only one who sent me here with her because forever one. Take a load off Fanny. Take a load for free. Take a load off Fanny. And you put the load right on me.
Beautiful. Wow. So, the great Robbie Robertson, and that being his final performance, I was just scrolling down here in the comment sections to get a little context of this performance, and it says from left to right, the ones I recognize is Cyril Neville on Skins, Nathaniel Ratliff and Lucas Nelson on guitars, Don was on bass, Emmylou Harris, Margot Price, Michael McDonald, Vince Gill on vocals, Warren Haynes on guitar. This was from late 2019, last Waltz tour. So the last time that he performed live on stage, I guess in a big way, would have been 2019. Wow, Robbie, it sounds like you were suffering for a little while there, man. I'm sorry to hear that. But what a really, really nice way to trail out the end of your life, you know, being surrounded by great people, rubbing shoulders with great people, and being admired by great people. That's fantastic. What a really excellent life you've lived, man. Fantastic. Great songwriter, great storyteller, shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Dylan where it comes to telling a great story and song. Let me know who else is in that lineup for you. I'm sure that Robbie is on that mantle. So, man, one thing I always liked about Robbie Robertson that had caught me right away when I first looked at him, when I first watched him performing and everything like that, is his constant smile. And that smile, if it could speak, it would say, I am grateful. I am just loving my life. I am in the zone and I'm following my bliss, and nothing is going to steal my joy. Even in his interviews, the way he expresses himself, he's very, very outgoing and well-spoken. The guy just loves life. You can tell. That's the power of his force. What a wonderful person, man. So, let's do this. You know my way. And sorry if you're hearing the noise of trucks outside. It's now 5:45 in the morning, and big trucks are building a giant condo complex across the way, so you're going to hear rumbling. All right, let's do a little read on Mr. Robertson. Robbie Robertson, the Order of Canada. Born July 5th, 1943 to August 9th, 2023, was a Canadian musician. He was lead guitarist for Bob Dylan in the mid-late 60s and early mid-70s, guitarist and songwriter with the band from their inception until 1978, and a solo artist. Robertson's work with the band was instrumental in creating the Americana music genre. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Canadian Music Hall of Fame as a member of the band, and into Canada's Walk of Fame with the band and on his own. He is ranked 59th in Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest guitarists. He wrote The Wait, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, and Up on Cripple Creek with the band, and had solo hits with Broken Arrow and Somewhere Down the Crazy River, and many others. He was inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame and received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Academy of Songwriters. Now, if you were to force me, I probably can't even come up with my favorite Robbie Robertson song. What's your favorite Robbie Robertson song? Well, it's probably unfair to ask. It's probably not fair to ask for one. Give me a list. Give me your top 5. List them for me. Your favorite Robbie Robertson songs. Let me know. Robertson collaborated on film and TV soundtracks, usually with director Martin Scorsese, beginning in the rockumentary film The Last Waltz in '78, and continuing through dramatic films including Raging Bull, The King of Comedy, Casino, The Departed, The Wolf of Wall Street, The Irishman, I knew it, and Killers of the Flower Moon. Yo, guys, you've got to see The Irishman if you have not seen The Irishman. And with all of those fantastic stars in that movie, De Niro, Harvey Keitel, Al Pacino, the standout by far was Joe Pesci. And it's not like he was going crazy like he did as Tommy Lasorda in Goodfellas. He was just chill, tranquil, but intense. It's the intensity. You must watch it. It's a 3-hour watch. The Irishman. And don't be squeamish about the violence because it grows on you. But you gotta watch it for the historical accounting of it. And especially the theory of what they did with Jimmy Hoffa. The Irishman, you must watch. Let me know after you've seen it. Okay. Robbie Robertson's personal life. On March 24th, '68, Robertson married Dominique Burgess, a Canadian journalist. They had 3 children. In March of 2022, Robertson became engaged to his girlfriend of 4 years, Canadian entrepreneur, restaurateur, and Top Chef Canada judge, Janet Zaccarini. On March 12, 2023, they were married, which was shared on her Instagram account. Robertson was a member of the Canadian charity Artists Against Racism until his death in LA on August 9, 2023, at the age of 80, after a year-long illness with prostate cancer. A year-long illness. So that would be from the time that he was definitely diagnosed to the whole process of going through treatment. But my feeling is that he was feeling the effects and suffering well before that. I'm pretty sure that's just kind of like the process of how prostate cancer goes. You deteriorate quickly. Wow, so sad about that. All right, so y'all, this concludes our look at the great Robbie Robertson. Of course, I could spend hours going through the catalog of his life and his great achievements and accomplishments. The thing I like about him the most, as I said already, is how he embraced life, how he cherished life. Even though he was going through a quote-unquote feud with Levon Helm, it really wasn't for him. He was gracious to the end, never uttered a bad word. He could have been slinging things, but he took the higher road because he is on his grind, he's on his purpose, and he is basically following his bliss. When somebody is in that mode, bullets can't penetrate them. You know what I'm saying? So good for you, Robbie. You're a class act, brother, all the way from beginning to end. Because I say this because I see the fallout of relationships in the music industry, how some artists speak of their fellow bandmates, how some artists speak about other artists and they're bitter and they're butthurt. And even though they're older now and they should know better and they should have done some work on themselves, they're still hanging on to shit, you know. There's one very, very iconic, legendary artist who still to this day refuses to acknowledge the value of another contemporary band just as great, and to the point where he doesn't even acknowledge liking a single piece of work that they've ever done. You know that's bullshit. But that's how bitterness can grip your mind, your heart, and your soul, to the point where you're basically just toxic in a certain respect. But that's blocking you from becoming wise. Look at the adornment of wisdom and tranquility on Robbie Robertson, the way he's speaking in his interviews, even though Dan Rather was really leaning in and digging in, he kept his resolve and he kept on the straight and narrow. Not that Dan was deliberately looking for him to come out swinging and counterpunching and slinging mud or anything, but he really wanted to get into the heart of it. But at its core, there was just nothing there. Not for Robbie. He was just happy. He was grateful. He was thankful. And he had a great outlook on life. When you've got all of those things working for you, you're good to go. You know, they could take a guy like that, throw him in the deepest, darkest dungeon. 25 years later, he comes out smiling. That's what I'm talking about. That is the kind of depth of character and wisdom we should all be striving to achieve. Got to be more like Robbie Robertson, man. That is what I'm talking. That's how I'm going to remember him. So, scrolling down. Notes, no notes. I briefed you guys on what's going on yesterday during my Rodriguez tribute. So basically, all I gotta say is I'm saddened by the fact that we're losing some of our great influencers, our icons, and people as wonderful as Robbie Robertson. Yes, you know, people pass away, but you still feel it. And when certain people leave us, you really feel it. And this is one of those cases, man. But I'm very, very grateful for what he did provide for us. The fact that we can sit here and argue as to which is his best song, or list a whole bunch of his songs because you can't just list one. You know, that is a great accomplishment in itself. So cheers to you, Mr. Robertson. Thank you very much for how you carried yourself, how you represented grace, and that is a rock and roll Hall of Famer. That is an icon, and that is what, and he's influenced so many people, so I'm sure that even the newer generation of artists who've been influenced by him will go on and probably model the same kind of grace. Fingers crossed. Let's hope that there's a revival. There'll never be another great renaissance of creativity, but there could be another resurgence of great artists basically doing their best, coming into their own, not leaning so much on auto-tune and all of that crap. You know what I'm saying? Just that pure essence of the music coming through. That is what's missing. And somebody's going to be smart enough one day to fashion their style and their music and their concepts and all of those elements after the likes of Robbie Robertson. What do you think? I'm hopeful for that. Anyway, y'all, I am going to bounce. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you have a deeper appreciation for Robbie Robertson if you didn't know him very well. I've always liked this guy from the get. And I really appreciate and respect his body of work. It's fantastic. It speaks for itself. Anyways, I hope that you don't see me anytime soon. My little pattern of threes, as I call it, is now over. So let's hope that it'll be weeks, if not months, before we're actually doing this again. So have a good one, take care, and hopefully you don't see me anytime soon. Peace.